The Johnny Cleveland Podcast. All things Cleveland sports with your host, John Suchan. Good day, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. It is Friday, June 23rd, and we are happy to have you along, part of the Fanatical Elves Network. I am your host, John Suchan, and thanks for joining us. If you're watching here on YouTube or on Twitter, it's a fun Friday. So I always tell my son, Grant just went off to work on his he works at a doggy daycare. So if you're a Browns fan, that's a good thing, right? Because we love our dogs. And Grant, many of you have met Grant. If you've watched this podcast in the past, our Johnny Cleveland podcast, he sometimes might be my co-host. And Grant has special needs. He has autism. And so one of his jobs that he does on Fridays is to go work with a lot of dogs and help out. And so hopefully he's having a fun Friday. That's what I always say when he leaves the house. Hope you're having a fun Friday. And we're going to talk Brownies today. Also, a little Cleveland news last night. If you follow the Cleveland Cavaliers, I also write for King James Gospel, which is part of the fan-sided community that writes on the Cavs. The Cavs did pick up Amani Bates with the pick number 49 from Eastern Michigan. Started his career at Memphis. He was a highly touted high school kid, actually middle school kid. They thought he might be the next Kevin Durant. Reading up a little bit on Terry Pluto's excellent article in the Cleveland Plain Dealer this morning. Love Terry Pluto. Many of you know who I'm talking about as far as writers. And if you get an opportunity to ever read his stuff, it's great. I try to write myself and try to emulate kind of Terry's takes and the way that he approaches his articles. So the Cavs did pick up this Amani Bates, and there's some controversy there just because he's was highly touted coming out of middle school and high school, and he was projected to be a potential NBA lottery pick. And the Cavs took him at 49 last night in the second round. We'll see what happens. It will be a project. He had a decent career at Eastern Michigan, had a few good games. I know a lot of the younger Cavs fans that I write with at King James Gospel have also are excited about this pick. So we'll see how it all projects. You know, you think about the Cavs and the reminiscing us old Cleveland fans about the good old days back in, the 1980s. You remember that 1986 NBA draft with the Cavaliers? What a great draft that was. Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, just great stuff there. And that team also included Craig Elo, Hot Rod Williams, Larry Nance Sr. Don't forget about Ron Harper. If it weren't for those Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. Anyway, so back to the Browns. It's been a full week, and we're right around the corner from the Browns opening up training camp. They did release some dates coming up here for the general public to attend training camp. I believe it starts that latter part of July, where fans and season ticket holders can get their first grab at those tickets to attend. I've done this before. Maybe you have as well. It's really a great experience. You get up close and personal with the team and get to see their workouts that day. I'm also going to be part of, mentioned this before, Josh, Browns, president of the local Wichita Browns backers, is coming into town with the presidents. The Browns do a great job organizationally of giving Browns backers presidents a up close and personal look at the organization. They're having a dinner with Joe Thomas that weekend in later part of August before the season kicks off. Also includes a trip down to the Football Hall of Fame. So I will be part of that. looking forward to that experience. So thank you, Cleveland Browns. So the Browns, it's kind of that dead period. We've been talking about it on our other shows. We had a great Fanatical Elves show last night with our colleague Steve Gill down there in Nashville, who's just started his new podcast, the Dog Pound South show. And then Elliot, who also does football, rocket science and rocket science philosophy, that is, with his partner Joel K. They have a podcast together and they do a great job on that. Also, Joel does his own What the Elf Was That show. So all these shows, including Rod Bloom, who does the Browns Blitz, just do a great job every week. I love listening to their content, love listening to what they're talking about every week, and it's really right on target with what all of us Browns fans are talking about, and their takes are really good. And so if you listen to our Fanatical Elves Network show last night, we also had a giveaway. North California fan won the free giveaway for the Browns really nice metal license plate. So congratulations to him. We will be mailing that out, part of our Fanatical Elves Network. So follow along. As I say, every week, if you have friends or family that are Browns fans, tell them to start tuning in. You can join us on all sorts of platforms, from Apple to Spotify to iHeartRadio. You can email the show at elvesnetwork@gmail.com if you have questions. We'd love to hear from you, what your concerns are with the Brownies, what you're expecting this year. Love to read those takes on air. So send us your emails at elvesnetwork, ELFZ network@gmail.com. So this week was a little bit of a down week. I wrote a couple articles about the Browns, and particularly about Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb. You can, if you're watching this on the YouTube or Twitter, you'll see in the background a picture of Nick Chubb. That article I wrote earlier for Northeast Sports Insiders. They do a great job of covering Cleveland sports and also high school sports in the Northeastern Ohio area. Natalie Turk is the leader there. We also get a lot of support, I should mention, from Cleveland Sports Talk. Zach Shafron does a great job of supporting our network here at the Fanatical Elves, and we really appreciate all of the support you give us too. So I wrote an article for Northeastern Sports Insiders about Nick Chubb and the masterpiece that is the one Nick Chubb. It really is something that we are witnessing history in the making. He is more than likely going to be a future Hall of Famer if he, knock on wood, like we were talking last night on the show, stays out of any sort of medical injuries over the next extension of his career. If he continues to do what he's been doing the last 5 seasons at the rate that he's doing it, it really is phenomenal. It's phenomenal because, every time he gets on the field of play, he's helping the team out. There are so many examples of that. Even when he's not rushing the ball, the defenses have to account for him when he's on the field. We were talking last night about the game against the Cincinnati Bengals back in 2021, and Browns won that game pretty handily. And he ran the ball 17 times, but he only was on the field a total of 27 plays offensively. But he does all those things that just are so impressive, that he, with the limited number of runs he gets, with the number of plays that he's actually in there. And I got to give props, like I said last night, to Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff for really keeping him on pace, Chubb, as far as the percentages that he is out there on the field. I think that's speaks highly of what the coaches are trying to do, and it's trying to keep Nick Chubb healthy. And that's what we want. We want a healthy Nick Chubb. So talked a little bit about him. I'm also doing an article that's coming out on Dog Pound Daily about Nick Chubb's great games that he has had over his career. So many, right? I'm trying to put together a top 10 list. You might have your favorite Nick Chubb games. Don't want to give away all the games that I talked about on that show, on that article, but who can not remember the very first moment you saw Nick Chubb in a game in the NFL back in 2018? Carlos Hyde had been the running back coming into the season with Hugh Jackson back in 2018. And Nick Chubb had been drafted pretty highly in that 2018 draft along with Baker Mayfield. But it wasn't until, was it week 3 or week 4, that when the Browns went out to California to play the Oakland Raiders, that we all were introduced to the great Nick Chubb. He burst through the offense or the defensive opponent. He burst onto the scene. He had 3 carries. 2 of them went for touchdowns, one of 40 some yards, the other one of 60 some yards. And welcome to the NFL. Welcome to becoming one of the next legends of Cleveland Browns football. So that was one great game. I'll never forget. That was an amazing moment. There were other games along the way. Go back to 3 seasons ago in 2020 when the Browns needed to win the playoff game, or needed to win the game to get to the playoffs to play the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoff game. They ended up playing Pittsburgh twice because they did win the game that they had to. But part of that moment in 2020 that helped the Browns win that game was a dazzling display of cuts and weaves when Nick Chubb went 47 yards and exposed the Pittsburgh Steelers defense on a spectacular touchdown run that gave them the lead early in that game, gave them a lot of momentum, and the Browns were able to secure victory. And the last game and I'll mention this as well in the article, you can read about it too, but I've talked about this moment in time, and you probably remember this moment. It was the same season, 2020. Nick Chubb was coming off of an injury, and they inserted him back after the bye week. They had to play the Houston Texans and the Philadelphia Eagles in back-to-back home games. Do you remember that? And the weather was just like crap. Remember? It's just ugh. And Nick Chubb did everything that he could, and it was spectacular. And it was a low-scoring affair against the Houston Texans. And he has one of the most legendary, unselfish, team-oriented plays that I will always remember. The Browns are winning 10-7, the closing minutes of the game, but they needed to continue to run the clock. And he took the ball around the left side and burst down the sideline virtually untouched. Could have gone easily in for the touchdown, but going up for the touchdown would have given the Browns maybe a 10-point lead and probably a safe bet at winning that game. But he chose to walk out of bounds at the 1-yard line, which gave the Browns the ball back and allowed Baker Mayfield to take a knee and run the clock out. What a unselfish moment. And that is what Nick Chubb's about. And that's why that was one of my all-time favorite moments of Nick Chubb and watching him. So we're going to go take a break. And after the break, we're going to discuss the other article I wrote on Myles Garrett and those lovely folks out there in Twitter land. So this is the Johnny Cleveland podcast. We are part of the Fanatical Elves Network, and we will be right back. Okay, we are back. This is the Johnny Cleveland podcast, and I am your host, John Suchan. Welcome. Good morning. It is Friday, June 23rd. I am drinking my coffee this morning. What are you drinking this morning? Or are you watching this live? Okay, so I'm going to take a sip of my coffee here. And the other article I wrote on Dog Pound Daily this week was about Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, yes. The article was entitled something along the lines of Myles Garrett isn't exactly the leader that we had all imagined. Woo. Wow. I had no idea. Well, I had some idea that there were so many Myles Garrett fans. Oh my, they will do anything to go to the ends of the earth to support one Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, the defensive end of the Cleveland Browns, all-pro, great player. Let me start with that. If you haven't heard me, if you're on Twitter and you like to hate, listen to what I just said. Myles Garrett is a great player. You know it, and I know it. But apparently the article title didn't go off too well for some folks. And at this point, when you write articles, which we do a lot of, and we'll start with this: the articles that I write, the articles that all the contributors here on the Fanatical L's network, from Rod Bloom to Joel to Elliot to Steve, all of them are amazing writers, and none of us write articles just for clickbait, like some of you out there in La La Land like to project. And so this article got a lot of hate, and not going to be able to change any of those people that want to hate on that, or the topic, or the idea that Myles Garrett is a god. Myles Garrett is a person. Myles Garrett is a great football player. But there is a side to Myles Garrett that doesn't make him that outspoken vocal leader. Granted, that doesn't have to be the case to be a great leader. And that's not what the purpose of the article that I wrote was about. If you read the article, and many people unfortunately did not, they just read the headline, surprise there, they assume that the article title was to diss Myles Garrett. If you read the article, and I would challenge you to even open the article and read what it says, you would see that it talks a lot about how Myles Garrett is a certain type of personality that isn't more of an introvert, and he's not a person that's very outspoken. But the article also did go into a little bit of how he has had some instances, and those of you who want to excuse those instances, that's unfortunate, because there are some things that have happened with him, from helmet throwing to having a car accident where he was speeding extraordinarily out on a county road, to being kind of outspoken about various coaching staffs that have come and gone. Any of these guys, from any player on the team, has a right to speak their mind. And as a football fan, you or I, we want to see these guys play football, and that's what really we really should be concerned about. So I think the article was just there to point out that he's not exactly that outspoken vocal leader. And that's not necessarily bad. And I did not say that in the article. So those of you who did not bother to click on the article, which it's not clickbait, but if you didn't bother to even open the article and read what was inside of it, then that's unfortunate. And you will continue to bash really good people that do a lot of really good writing and produce a lot of excellent content. And that's unfortunate. So continue your ways on Twitterland, in La La Land, as we will continue to write good material and produce excellent content for you. If you are a diehard, caring, and loyal Browns fan. None of us in this business of writing articles or producing these podcasts are here to bring hate, like some of you like to project. That's absolutely the polar opposite of what we do in our business. We are doing these things because we love our Browns, like you. And hopefully you can maybe turn a corner and turn a leaf and maybe change your views and your points, because if you're not going to open up an article and you're not going to read what's inside of it, or if you're not going to watch our podcast or listen to what's out there, you don't have to. You can choose to ignore that. But it's those of you who don't ignore it and you want to bring hate to those that produce the content, which it's a really sad business that you're in. And I hope that you can see that for what it is. But you probably won't, and you'll continue to bash those who produce and create good stuff. And so I feel bad for you. With that, I hope that all of you who follow all of our shows on the Fanatical Elves Network and here on the Johnny Cleveland podcast. Continue to listen and comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what we need to get better at, because we do want to get better. We do want to improve, and we want to bring you the best content. We have folks that are going to be there down on the field of play. There are some opportunities for many of us who will be up close and personal with the players and with the team this upcoming season. So we're excited to be able to do that. We're going to give you more information about those opportunities that we have, share those out with you on this Fanatical Elves Network. We can't wait. We can't wait for the Browns to have their kicking off their training camp again, and all these things that are coming up. So again, I hope you have this is a great day, right? It's a fun Friday. We have, it's a kind of a dreary weather-wise here in the Buckeye State today, but it's supposed to be a very nice weekend. Not nearly as hot as it has been. We're getting lots of rain. We love that. The grass is green, and we're plowing through June. And guess what? 4th of July is just right around the corner. Fireworks, folks, fireworks. The Browns will be having a lot of fireworks this season down along the lakeshore, I believe. Okay, folks, have a great weekend, and go Browns. This is the Johnny Cleveland podcast, and I'm your host, John Suchin. Take care, and I always finish with, that's right, remember too, folks, to keep smiling.